Hi everyone, my name is Dylan, and in this video I want to share a little bit about my background as a filmmaker and my creative voice and what I kind of aspire for this YouTube channel to be about. And so a little bit of background about me is I grew up being a Star Wars kid, loving to swing my lightsaber in the cul-de-sac. In middle school I started doing stop motion with my Legos, Star Wars stop motion of course, and started to really fall in love with storytelling and just the beginnings of that art of filmmaking. And so when I graduated high school and I was considering where to go to college, I was considering whether I was going to go for animation, as I was doing stop motion at the time, or if I was going to go for filmmaking. And so I studied creative media and film, was the name of my major. And I also had a great internship at the time with a guy named Victor. He really taught me a lot, probably even more than my classes about cinematography and how to kind of craft light. And I also started throughout college to distinguish myself as an editor. And through all that, I still kind of had this desire to write and tell my own stories. I had a blast writing and directing my capstone film for my bachelor's degree.
Scene 11A, take 2.
And you can watch that on this channel. It's called Lights in the Dark. I'm really proud of it and the work that my team and I put together on that. So after graduating with my degree in creative media and film, I moved out to Atlanta, where there is a lot of filmmaking going on in the industry here. And I've had a couple different jobs in videography and filmmaking since moving out here. And so a little bit about my creative voice now. There's 3 words that I've kind of come to use to describe my creative voice over the years. And these 3 words have actually been evolving a lot since even high school, I think was when I had the first version of them. And so those 3 words at this point in my career are whimsical, earnest, and fantasy. And so let me unpack those 3 words a little bit. By whimsical, I think of, first thing that comes to my mind is Winnie the Pooh. I think of him doing his up, down, touch the ground song.
When I up, down, touch the ground, it puts me in the mood. Up, down, touch the ground, in the mood for food.
And so the second word is earnest, and I think another related word for that is sincerity. It's kind of the opposite of edginess, right? I think one of the favorite movies that comes to mind that epitomizes this is the new Superman movie.
You trust everyone and think everyone you've ever met is, like, beautiful.
Maybe that's the real punk rock.
It doesn't apologize for the wacky superhero world that it inhabits. It doesn't have to do with a wink wink at you that some of the Marvel movies do. And it doesn't have to try to be really edgy and grounded like some of the DC movies do. It kind of is like, this is just the world that we're living in for this 2 hours, and it makes you believe in that world. And more than that, it makes you believe in the character because the character is also earnest. And the third word is fantasy. When I kind of fleshed that out, I really fleshed it out using kind of the language that Tolkien developed when he wrote his essay on fairy stories. And in that essay, he kind of describes fairy stories as not being about fairies or elves necessarily, but the realm of fairy. And the realm of fairy is the fact that there's the stories take place in an imaginary world that is different from ours. And so, again, even that Superman movie I was just talking about is a good example of, it's an imaginary second world, but the movie makes you believe in it. And one of the purposes that Tolkien has for these fantasy stories or fairy stories is that they create that longing and they create that escape from our world. And the point of that is not necessarily just so that we can escape and not have to deal with our world, but that it can actually teach us things that get lost in how mundane our everyday life is. Some of my favorite stories, I think, kind of cross 2 or 3 of those words, the whimsical, earnest, and fantasy. I think the Narnia stories are absolutely some of my favorite.
For Narnia! And
I think they differ from Lord of the Rings in particular, and Hobbit is also kind of differs from Lord of the Rings in that I think both are a little bit more whimsical. And so you could say that that's because both of them are aimed a little bit more at a younger audience. And I think that's sort of true, but I think I just really enjoy the parts of those stories that don't take themselves as seriously. I love the Lord of the Rings, of course, But as far as my creative voice, I think if I were ever to tell a fantasy story, I think it would lean a little bit more towards Narnia or a little more towards Star Wars, in that maybe the magic system or rules of that world aren't as hard or defined, and there's a little bit more space for Father Christmas to show up midway through, or for Baby Yoda to be a character, right? All right, so that really kind of sums up those 3 words that define my creative voice, and so that's the lens through which I kind of view storytelling and the stories I want to tell. So that kind of brings me right into that next thing I want to talk about, which is more about, you know, what really is the kind of style of content or the style of videos that, at least right now, I'm hoping to put on this channel. And of course, I imagine that will evolve over time. I would love for them to have kind of a cross between the kind of BTS filmmaker style that you see a lot of on YouTube, kind of like focusing on gear and cinematography, and then also more of a video essayist style, which is more about the craft of storytelling and kind of breaking down the themes or ideas behind scripts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how that's going to look, how I'm going to mesh the more gearhead cinematography technical side, which I love, with the more thematic or philosophical side of storytelling. But I think I need to blend those 2 things to kind of honor that value of earnesty and kind of the imaginative world building that takes place in fantasy. And again, a lot of what I think and say at one point or today might change, or I might change my opinion on it, because again, I'm very early in my career, and so I think that having that value of earnesty and kind of sincerity also means I have to be humble and honest when I'm saying this is just what my opinion right now, not that I've got it all figured out, right? Alright, so thank you so much for sticking around if you've made it to the end here. That is a little bit about me and my background as a filmmaker and my creative voice and what I aspire for this channel to be right now. Again, it could evolve a lot over the time, so I just invite you to stick around and see how things evolve. To do that, I just invite you to subscribe and like the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.